Hi guys, today I'll be showing you how I decluttered my craft supplies using the KonMari method. If you're familiar with the KonMari method, it's by this famous minimalist called Marie Kondo. She wrote the book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying. Highly recommend, it's really good. And I used her book to go through basically everything I own and declutter, and I found it was really useful. But in her book, obviously, it didn't have anything that related to craft supplies, so I was sort of stuck with this enormous pile of craft supplies that was just taking over my life. I'll show you the before shot of my room here. So in this process, I took the concepts and techniques that Marie Kondo uses and applied that to craft stuff. So how I'm going to break up this video is first into categories: textiles, stationery, art, fabric, and scrapbooking. After that, I'm going to talk about how to deal with unfinished projects, and then lastly, the storage of your remaining things. So let's get started. We're going to start with stationery and art supplies. Go through each item one by one and hold it. Immediately just discard any pieces that are broken or dried out, such as old paints. Next, we're going to ask some guiding questions. The most effective rule for this is probably the 20/20 rule. Can it be replaced for under $20, less than 20 minutes away? You can also ask, when was the last time I used this? Am I holding on to it just because it was expensive, but I don't necessarily use it? For art supplies, ask yourself, is this a medium that I really use? When I was younger, I was really into oil pastels, and I haven't used them in about 5 years, but for some reason I was just holding on to them. Next, it's time to take action. It's important to consider that there are probably several activities that you'll find you really love, and then some others that you've tried but just weren't really for you. There's no point holding on to materials and tools for activities that you don't really do anymore. If you bought materials for these activities, thank them for the use they gave you and for teaching you what you like and dislike, and then let go. Only keep stationery that you regularly love using. You don't need 20 ballpoint pens. All the items that you've decided you don't want, if they're in good working order, you can donate those. And if you have maybe items, put them in a box near your front door. And if in the next week or 2 weeks you go to that box to get something, then you can keep it because that shows that you do use it. But otherwise, just donate it. Now it's time to store all your remaining items. Keep all brushes, tools, and palettes together. Then organize by activity. Drawing supplies, for example pastels, pencils, pens, markers. Then paints, such as acrylic, watercolor, gouache. And then your everyday stationery can go into an accessible drawer. Materials like canvases and sketchbooks can be filed vertically in ascending order. Next is scrapbooking. Begin by identifying what you specifically use your scrapbooking items for. Is it collage, pen paling, scrapbooking, making photo books? Write down what you primarily make and what materials you usually use for this. Next, take everything out of its place and physically hold each piece. Anything that immediately catches your eye as damaged or not useful to you, get rid of it. Next, it's time to ask some guiding questions. These could include, does it suit my style? Have I outgrown it? Have I used this recently? If someone asked me what was in my scrapbooking collection, would I have remembered I owned this? And for items that you're unsure about, the 20/20 rule can be really helpful again, and that is, can it be replaced for under $20 in less than 20 minutes? And next, the actions to take. Discard all the no items. Unless you're an avid scrapbooker, discard the maybe items as well. If you are, you could try the technique of putting a box near your door with the maybe items, and if you go to your door to get pieces back during the week, you can keep them, but otherwise just put them in your car and donate them. Lastly, organize all the remaining items. Paper drawers or filing systems are really effective for this. You can also use Ziploc bags for small pieces, and tools can go into a container or a basket for easy access. By now you've probably got a hang of how each of these categories is going to be organized. So to keep it simple, the main steps are: take everything out of its place and hold it, get rid of damaged or unusable items, then ask your guiding questions. These usually include, when was the last time you used it? Is it something that you still use? The 20/20 rule, etc. Then take action, get rid of the things that you don't use. The things that you're unsure about, give them an extra week or so sitting by your front door, and then store the remainder. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you a few tips for the other categories, but that is the basic process that you can always go back to. The next one is textiles. This includes tools and materials for sewing, knitting, quilting, dressmaking, crocheting, whatever it is that you do that's textiles related. Take all the items out of their usual place, throw away anything that has missing pieces or is damaged, create some guiding questions that suit you and ask yourself these questions for each item. Cull the rest. For storing textiles supplies, Ziploc bags are really handy. They're clear and they don't take up as much space as a container. And you could also use pillboxes or tiny containers for like small things like beads and that. And label things with a Sharpie for easy location. Next is fabric. I made this one a whole category because I have so much fabric. Lay everything onto the floor. Identify the different types of fabric. There's fabric you bought because it was pretty on sale and you have no intention in mind with it. There's fabric you have left over from a project, like offcuts. And there's fabric you bought with an intention in mind but never acted upon. Next, go through each piece and ask your guiding questions. Did I buy this fabric for a specific project? If yes, did I use it and is this leftovers? Did I end up abandoning or never getting around to this project? Will I work on this project in the next week? If you bought it without a purpose in mind, does holding it immediately inspire you to make something specific? Get an idea of your consumption habits and what impulses drive you to buy or hold on to fabric. One of Marie Kondo's ideas about books is that when you first encounter a book, that is the time to read it. And I think that's the same with fabric. If you go out and buy some fabric, that should be the day that you make something with it. I was pretty ruthless with this category and I decided that anything I hadn't used in the last week, I would discard. If you're unsure, set an alarm on your phone for a week from now, and if you still haven't used that fabric, get rid of it. If there's some fabric that you haven't used but you're just holding on to for some reason, just get rid of it. You can always replace it. That was all our categories. If you have a hobby that I didn't mention, you can use the same techniques and guiding questions to kind of figure it out for yourself. Or if you want some help, you can leave a comment and I'll try and give my best advice. Next is unfinished projects. This is the hardest. You've put love and time and money into these projects and you never finished it, but you don't want to let go of them. In a way, they almost have a sentimental value. They may be attached to dreams of the kind of person you want to be. The half-finished quilt might symbolize the way you wanted to be a perfect aunt and hand-sew quilts for your niece. At the very least, the time you put into them is meaningful, and so I'm going to be treating this as sentimental items. It's important to first acknowledge the value that these projects hold to you, and figure out specifically why you're attached to each piece. There's some reason that you never let go of it, but there's also some reason that you never finished it. And the reason you never finished it is it stopped being a priority. Maybe you started a new hobby or a new project and realized you didn't like it all that much. It's important to do some soul searching and really figure out why you stopped. Next, you can ask some guiding questions for each project. These could include, why am I holding on to this? Why is it unfinished? Have I worked on this in the last 2 weeks? Will I work on it again in the next week? Is this still something I'm invested in, and will it bring me joy if I finish it? Does this project have a place in my future dream life? That sounds a bit wishy-washy, but I mean, do you imagine in a year from now the person that you want to be? Does this project have a place in that life? It's important to remember that you will be inspired by new projects in the future. And if you don't work on these projects now, you never will. You only have limited time and energy which you want going into the most important projects. So choose a manageable number of projects to keep and discard the rest. Before you get rid of the other ones, you can use Marie Kondo's method and thank them for the skills that they taught you, the inspiration that they gave you, and the enjoyment you got from creating them, and then let them go. Lastly, even though I did talk about storage a bit with each individual category, I've got some general advice for storing craft supplies. It's really important that everything is accessible. You know what it's like when you're on a roll and you're really getting into a project. You want to be able to quickly grab something, not mess around with items stacked on top of each other or in hard to reach places. I used to store all my things in these crates stacked on top of each other in my room, but I ended up just never putting things back in their place because it was too difficult to reach for the lowest crate and try and move everything around. And then at the end of the day, I ended up with this huge mess in my room that was just out of control. This is how I store my craft supplies now, and I have a lot less too. And I make sure everything is clearly labelled so I know exactly where it is. So that's everything I have for you. I hope this helped you out. This video took a really long time to make because there was just so much and it was a really long process. But I did write down everything I did as I went along. So that's why I was looking down at some points, because I was looking down at the Word document on my laptop. So sorry about that. But I hope that helps you get rid of the monster of your craft supplies. It can be really overwhelming. I was putting off doing this for like 2 years, but I just feel so much freer now that I just don't have all this rubbish that I'm not using. And I feel really happy that things like my oil pastels that I really enjoyed as a child but I never used, now they're going to go to someone who will actually use them and who will really enjoy them. And also, if you have like some really expensive stuff, you could probably sell it and then invest that money into things that you really need. So minimalism is something that I'm really interested in, but I haven't made any videos on like the minimalist philosophy until this one. Mostly it's just been like the minimalist aesthetic in like room decor and things like that. So if you want to see more minimalism videos, give this a thumbs up, or you can leave a comment below with some ideas for what you want me to make. In my bullet journal I have a whole page of ideas regarding minimalism that I've been too afraid to post because I wasn't sure if you guys would like it or not. So this is kind of testing the waters. I hope this video wasn't too long and I hope it helped you out, and I'll see you soon.